Come on in, guys. Come on in. Happy Monday to everybody. This is an early edition of the Wise Men Podcast, an early edition. We have special guests in the building tonight. But before we get started, guys, come on in. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Hit that like button as you come on in. There is a poll at the top of the chat. Have you ever been a victim of double brokering? So come on in. Make sure you guys hit that, participate in that poll. Right now we got 21% says yes, 58% says no, 55% says no right now, and 25% says they're not sure. So make sure you participate in that chat. Let me know where you guys are checking in from. Make sure you guys hit that like button. I'm not going to do the roll call tonight because we do have a special guest, so we want to get straight to it. We want to be mindful of everyone's time. Hey, Kurt, you got a background noise in. Can you turn off the noise cancel or turn on the noise cancellation?
Yeah. Let me
Oh, we do got some moderators. Moderators, we do got special guests in the building tonight. So zero tolerance, guys, tonight. This afternoon. This afternoon, zero tolerance. All right. So trolls, robots, anything, just boot them. No second chances. All right. All right. So guys, we got a special guest in the building tonight. Double brokering is a big issue. And we got a special guest that has some technology that may help in the prevention of double brokering. I like to introduce you guys to Nathaniel Ebel of Freight Validate. How are you doing this afternoon, Nathaniel?
Hey, I'm good, man. Happy to be here. Appreciate you guys having me on.
I appreciate you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Kurt, you want that noise? It's still there.
that's probably the truck next to me. That's their APU system.
Oh, okay. All right, never mind. No worries. I know you're out in the field. All right, so Nathaniel, we're going to get straight into it. Can you start with explaining what Freight Validate does and how it fits into the logistics and transportation industry?
Yeah. So Freight Validate is a new technology platform. We're getting ready to launch here in just a couple weeks, October 9th. So mark it on your calendars. October 9th, we launch. But it's a platform for both brokers and carriers alike to be able to have some confidence and be able to trust who they're doing business with, because when they see that green check mark that says Freight Validate, they know that they've gone through an extensive vetting process, a validation process, if you will. That means that they're fully compliant and doing business fully legally. So basically what we're launching is a platform to where, like I said, a carrier or a broker has the chance to just type in an MC number of whoever they want to, in this case, carrier take a load from. Maybe they're pulling loads off the load board. Maybe they're trying to talk to some different brokers. They can literally type in an MC number and find out if that person or that company rather is validated or not. Within literally a second or two, it lets them know, is this company that I'm trying to take a load from fully compliant, fully legal, check all the boxes, yes or no, validated or not. And so we're really excited about what we're doing. I know we're going to cover a ton of stuff today in this show, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, man, really excited about what we're going to launch here in just a couple weeks.
Okay. And you said, what was the date on that again?
Yeah, October 9th. So we are just about 2 weeks out. But yeah, Monday, October the 9th, we're launching.
Okay. Double brokering can be a major issue in the freight industry, leading to inefficiencies and potential legal complications. Can you explain from your perspective what, because we talk about it all the time, but it's good, to hear it from people who are in logistics, but in other sectors of logistics, what double brokering is and why it's a concern for shippers and carriers?
Well, absolutely, man. And that is a multifaceted question with a multifaceted answer. But before we do that, I think it's probably an important thing to mention my background. So before I dive into double brokering as the main topic, obviously on this call, my background is in freight, right? So I've been in the freight logistics space for almost 15 years, coming up on 15 years, I should say. And the majority of it's been in the brokerage space. So helped run a couple different brokerages, kind of the traditional model, also the agency model. And then prior to that was working with an asset-based group with a couple hundred different dry vans and flatbeds around the country as well. So I kind of come from both sides of the industry as far as working with drivers specifically for several years, and then on the brokerage side of it as well. Obviously working with drivers, but also on the customer facing side also. So the reason I like to mention that is myself, and then Dale, a gentleman by the name of Dale Prax. He's actually the owner and founder of Freight Validate.
Yeah, he's in the
He's
chat
got
now.
yeah, so he's got over 30 years of experience in the freight brokerage game also. So combined, he and we've got almost 50 years of experience doing freight. And so the reason I like to mention that is, everything we're going to kind of talk through on today's call, it's not by theory. It's not by, oh, I read it in a book, or oh, I've kind of just heard it through the grapevine. He and I both have actually experienced and lived this out for decades. And so it's pretty important to mention. But as far as, kind of getting back to your original questions, the compliance and legal aspect of freight, and companies being, well, I should say, companies being compliant and fully legal is obviously really, really important. And over the last handful of years, there's just become more and more gray area. There's become a lot of loopholes. There's been a lot of issues that has caused a lot of these double brokers and a lot of these bad actors, so to say, to kind of come into this industry and just start wreaking havoc over the last 3 to 4 years specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And the topics of double brokering, the topics of identity theft, cargo theft, really just fraud in general has really just really ran rampant over the last 3 to 4 years, and it's not gotten any better. Even though there's a couple other platforms out there that statistically, Truckstop actually put this out, is that freight fraud has actually grown by over 400% in the last 4 years. So the traditional approach, maybe some platforms that are maybe currently running, statistically says that it actually has not helped the cause the issues at all. In fact, the issues have gotten a lot worse. And so Freight Validate is excited. We think we're going to be doing some things very, very differently, taking a little bit of a different approach to really stop these guys and stop double brokering and fraud at its core at the very beginning, before they can even get any further and even have the opportunity to take a load. So we're really excited about it, man. Go ahead. I think you had a question. Go ahead.
There's competition. Do you guys have competition for your product, or is this something new to the industry with this technology that you guys are bringing forth? There's a couple other companies that are in this space that, they've been around for a year or two. There's a couple other companies that have put together some different, a couple different platforms. But what we're doing at Freight Validate is extremely different than anything else that's out there right now. What's that competitive advantage you guys got? Sorry to cut you off. What is the competitive advantage that you got over the
Yeah, so there's a few things, and when we roll out on the 9th, they'll fully be kind of known to the masses. But one of the biggest things that we're doing differently, among many, but one of the biggest things is that we're actually utilizing facial recognition technology to help with the very initial stages of a company to be validated. So whether it's a carrier, whether it's a broker, you need to know who you're actually doing business with, right? And so facial recognition, it sets us apart from there's nobody else in the industry. There's nobody else in our space that's utilizing this technology that we're going to launch on the 9th. But that's just one piece of several more that we're going to be able to really bring a lot of value with. But the double brokers and the fraud guys, these bad actors are smart people. Like, let's just be honest. I shouldn't say all of them. A lot of them, though, are pretty smart people. And if you don't know who you're doing business with, like if you can't put eyes on who you're doing business with, that's just kind of like the tip of the iceberg of what it could potentially boil down to. And so that's just one piece, but that's the initial piece of becoming freight validated. is facial recognition. We think it's going to be an absolute game changer, along with several of the other tech pieces that we're putting into play.
Okay, Kirk, you want to jump in there?
So basically, when I do a carrier package, I'm gonna have to submit some type of identification that you guys can see who I am.
So what's great about Freight Validate is it's not a carrier pack. It's not you're not having to go through Freight Validate so that you can get a load. It's not really set up like that at all. So basically, when we launch on the 9th, whether you're a carrier, whether you're a broker, if somebody wants to go and get freight validated, and then so their company is freight validated, and then they can also see any other company and see if they're freight validated, they go through the exact same process, carrier or broker. It doesn't matter who it is. It's a neutral, unbiased, just factually driven platform, right? So the first piece, like you said, yes, is facial recognition. So real simply, all we do is take a picture of the front and the back of the driver's license, take a quick selfie, and then it identifies, our technology identifies, hey, is that the same person, yes or no, from the picture to the ID? Is that the same person? Has it been manipulated? Is there any differences? Our technology is really, really impressive when it comes to identifying, is that the same person? Because most of the time, what we've seen in our experience and our research over the last several years is if somebody can't provide you who they are, that's a red flag. Automatically, it's a red flag. And in today's world, if I'm on the phone with somebody and they say, "Yeah, my name's Jim," I mean, I would love to believe them, but in today's world, especially with these topics we're talking about today, you can't always believe them. And so the technology that we have, as far as what we're using with facial recognition, is going to be able to help solve that from the very beginning stages.
Okay. So other than the facial recognition, can you walk us through other key features and benefits Freight Validate has for businesses looking to optimize their shipping and freight management processes?
Yeah, for sure. So, the facial recognition piece sets us apart by itself because nobody else is utilizing it. We think we're, miles ahead of anybody else doing anything even close to what we're doing, just simply because of that. But the other technology that we have have in play as well, there's some different AI components to what we have. There's some different data sources that we're going to be pulling data from that some of the other folks are not as well. But yeah, I mean, we think with everything holistically with that we're bringing to the table, it's absolutely going to help carriers and brokers out alike. And I think for the last several years, maybe you guys can attest to this because obviously you're really more on the carrier side than anything. But for the last several years, the topic of double brokering has really been almost pushed on just the carrier side, right? Like from the broker's view or from a lot of folks in the industry's view, is that it's just the carriers are causing a mess. They're messing up things. They're the ones that are kind of causing all these fraud topics, right? Well, over the last couple of years, we've found out that that's just simply not the case, and there's just as issues and double brokering cases and illegal activity going on the brokerage side as there is anywhere else. And so Freight Validate, one of the biggest reasons why it was even created was to make it an even playing field and to give both sides, not just the brokers, but the carriers and the brokers, a piece to say, hey, Freight Validate's a neutral platform. It's not biased one way or the other. It's just going to tell me, is my company validated? And if you get Freight Validated, then, hey, are the other companies that I want to do business with, are they validated as well? And so, yeah, we're excited about what we're putting together here.
You mentioned data, and someone I see has a question about data in the chat, and I also had a question that I had written down about data security. So I'm going to jump to that since you mentioned data. Data security is a major concern for businesses today. How does Freight Validate ensure security and privacy of sensitive shipping and freight data?
Yeah, so great question, and we'll be answering that question a lot because it is important and it should be secure, which it is, which is fantastic. We have a lot of guardrails, we have a lot of barriers, a lot of a lot of stopping barriers, if you will, for any sort of data that's not internal, right? So we can capture a lot of the data, of course, with our technology. but that data is not in return pushed out to anybody that we don't allow it to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as far as a lot of the sensitive information, I'll just give you an example because this is something that will probably come up. Is if a company signs up for Freight Validate, goes through the process, and for whatever reason they get a red X and that they're not Freight Validated,
Mm-hmm.
we know why. We don't share that with anybody else as far as like why somebody's not Freight Validated. But on our
Mm-hmm.
end, we can see why, and we're also utilizing a lot of this information as an education tool for carriers and brokers to basically help them out and say, hey, listen, Mr. Carrier, you may not even have known that you can't work out of a PO box.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one example. Or hey, Mr. Broker, you may not even have known that you can't do this or this or this. And so what we're
Mm-hmm.
going to do is we're using it as an education as an education tool to help some people out too that want to be helped and say, hey, listen, this and this, all you got to do is go and change it with the Secretary of State. Or oh, hey, here's a link that you can go change your PO box to an actual primary place of business, or whatever the topic is. And so we can actually help people be fully compliant and fully legal. And then once they are and it's confirmed, then they can have the opportunity to be freight validated.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned something that I see a lot of people are doing now, and it's going to be from the carrier side. If I wanted to get validated as a carrier and I had a virtual address, would you validate me or no?
A virtual address, no. You
Okay.
have to have a primary place of business to be fully legal and compliant. And here's the
Right.
thing too, and I'll just say this too: it's not our rules. We're
Mm-hmm.
not just making this up and saying, well, we just don't like the fact that somebody has a virtual address or a PO box. Go read the law. It's
Mm-hmm.
just straight facts. It's just black and white. It's just freight validated or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the best things about Freight Validate when we launch is it's just factual information. Yes, we're
Mm-hmm.
pulling some
Right.
info from the FMCSA. Yes, we're pulling some info from the Secretary of State. Yes, we're pulling some info from the state levels and the federal level, DOT, different things there. But we have several other proprietary technology spots that we're pulling from as well that will really, you know, that will really help identify like, hey, are these people doing business legally or are they not? And if they're
Mm-hmm.
not, okay, but we can help them, be fully compliant if they want to be. If they don't want to be, no big deal. Just not going to be validated.
Okay. Kirk, you want to jump in there? I don't want to hog all the.
Yeah, I want to ask a question because you said that your program and the way you guys are going to be doing business, they're not going to be biased. Do you see a lot of
Yeah.
bias in the trucking um, in the industry towards, especially towards carriers, where if a broker report a carrier, um, even if that carrier try to like defend himself or try to show proof, it's like it's a waste of time because they already make their decision to go along with the broker. Do you see a lot of that? And if your system is gonna help protect, maybe not at the initial starting, but later on, are you guys putting in stuff where dry like carriers and brokers can be validated at a claim level?
Yeah.
You know what I
So
mean?
we're not
It,
getting involved in the claims. We're not getting involved in any of that. Um,
mhm.
you know, sorry, I was kind of reading one of the messages here. We're not getting involved on the claim level by any means. But to your original question, absolutely, we've seen for years. This isn't a new thing, but we've seen for a lot of years. There is absolutely, kind of from the brokers, they can do no wrong. It's always the carrier's fault, and from the carriers,
Right, right.
the brokers are always at fault, and there's always kind of that discord. There's always kind of that back and forth. There's always kind of that disunity, so to say. And I know one thing that Dale and I are both very strong on because we've been in the industry for so long is we really see this as a tool, Freight Validate, to be able to unify the industry to an extent. For the
Mhm.
longest time, as long as I've been in the industry, at least, there's been the carriers over here, there's been the brokers over here, and then the shippers are somewhere in the back, that everyone's trying to go after and win business from. And,
Mhm.
we just believe that if there's unity between the brokers and the carriers, it makes things a whole lot easier. because if you can truly trust, and I know this is like a little bit of a stretch here because of how it's been for so long, but as a carrier, if you can genuinely truly trust who you're taking a load from because they're validated, you know that they're fully compliant, you know they're running fully legal, you know that they've checked all the boxes and that they're actually a legal company and they check all the boxes. Doesn't that make your life a little bit easier? Doesn't that kind of take a little stress off? Maybe be able to take some loads with more confidence than in the back of your mind, man, I don't know this broker very well. Like, it almost causes more stress and more issues and more headache than needed. And same thing on the carrier side. On the broker side. If a broker sees that a carrier is validated, automatically it's going to save time because if they're not set up already, that onboarding process, Kirk, you were mentioning a minute ago, as far as like carrier packets and whatnot getting set up, if they see that green check mark as a broker on a carrier, they're automatically going to have more confidence, and it's going to probably be a lot easier to onboard and a quicker onboarding process because they know, hey, this carrier is fully compliant. They wouldn't get a green check mark without it. They're doing fully legal business. They check all the boxes. And so what we think is going to happen is over time, probably sooner than later, is that green check mark that says freight validate, whether you're a carrier or whether you're a broker, is going to start to hold a lot of weight in this industry. It's going to start to say, are you freight validated or not? And what we think is going to happen is there's going to be a lot of brokers that are going to start asking the question to carriers when they call in and want to take a load, are you freight validated or not? And same thing with a carrier. If you're on the load board, say DAT, say Truck Stop, 123 Load Board, any of these other ones out there, if you call in and want to take a load, one of the first questions you should be asking is, hey, sir, are you freight validated or not? And the reason is because, again, the ones who are validated have gone through an extensive process, and it's kind of like that badge of honor, so to say, like you're one of the good guys, and we can prove it. So it's all just based on facts is what I'm getting at, is there's no bias one way or the other. It doesn't lean one way or the other. It's just factual information, yes or no.
Right.
I got a question that I think a lot of people want to know the answer to, and they'll probably appreciate it coming from someone with your brokerage experience. What are the common signs or red flags that shippers and carriers should watch out for to identify potential double brokering situations?
Well, Mark, there's a lot of those red flags. I'll tell you that, man. And you know probably all of them just like I do. Is there's a lot of them, and I was kind of mentioning this before as well. Is some of these guys, they're smart guys. Like some of these fraudsters, some of these double brokers, like they actually know the industry pretty well. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. And so they'll make a lot of the little things that maybe the common person or maybe the inexperienced person wouldn't catch. So I'll just give you a couple examples, but there's a lot of other ones here too. But just a couple examples is, and Kirk, we were kind of talking about this beforehand. Maybe we talk about this now as well. But changing the rate or maybe offering just an astronomical rate for a load. Mm-hmm. If a load's posted at $1,500, if you get a guy that calls in and says, "Hey, I want to do it for X amount of dollars," it's a $2,000 difference. I mean, nobody's doing that in today's climate, right? Nobody's doing that in today's freight market, right? And so, I mean, that's just one easy way to just say, "Oh, that doesn't sound right." And a lot of times, if it doesn't sound right, a lot of times it's not right? But that's just one example. If you look at rate confirmations, that's kind of another thing. A lot of these double brokers and a lot of these fraud guys, they'll change something or multiple things on a rate confirmation, whether it's the logo, whether it's an email address, whether it's the actual rate itself. The terms and conditions will change. I mean, there's several different things that they can do to a rate con that to the common eye doesn't look any different. But if you really look, if you really dig into it, it's not the same rate con, and you're about to get double brokered, right? Another thing is, a lot of these double brokers have multiple MC numbers. Sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes 2 or 3 dozen. And so a lot of times, they'll they'll be trying to take the same load. It's the same person, but they'll be trying to take the same load with different MCs. They'll be trying to, switch things after the load's already accepted. There'll be a lot of back and forth, like, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to put it on this truck, but I'm sorry, I'm going to actually put it over here on this truck. So, can you send me a new rate con? That kind of situation. The list goes on, man.
Right.
There's a lot of different stuff. There's probably things that we have that we haven't even heard of that these guys have planned. But what's cool is, again, if you catch it before it even starts to the point of even somebody having the opportunity to take a load, that's where Freight Validate comes in. We want to catch it before they even have the opportunity to take a load.
So I set that question up because I wanted to set up this next question because you mentioned, a lot of these guys that do fraud, like they're smart, and you think if
Yep.
they take, some of the,
Right.
the ingenuity that they have when they are putting together these scams and did it for something legal, they could be millionaires legally. You know what I'm saying? So with your technology, and I'm sure you guys are going to become leaders in the space, these guys are going to be working and trying to figure out ways to, still get validated. So 5 Star had a
Sure.
question. So what happens to a broker that's validated by Freight Validate, but then it's found to be double brokering loads?
Yep, it's a great question, and it's something that we're actually really excited to say is the fact that just because you become validated does not mean that you stay validated, right? So at any point, it doesn't matter if it's day one or month one or year one, if a company, whether it's a broker or carrier, decides to have fraudulent activity, decides to change their information, decides to do bad business is the best way to think of it. They'll become not validated just as fast as they got validated, right? And the reason why that's important is because, again, this whole thing's about trust and confidence. If you can't trust who you're doing business with, there's zero confidence, and vice versa, right? But to your question, there is yeah, when there is illegal activity going on, or if something changes, or company files for bankruptcy, or company changes ownership, or whatever the scenario is, our technology catches that on a daily basis. And so when we see the change, or the shift, or if something happens to that validated company, our technology catches it right away, and then we address it on our end. So whether that's getting clarity on the situation, or whether that's saying that company is no longer validated until they can provide the correct legal documents, then they can become validated again. Does that make sense?
Kirk, yeah, makes good
Right.
sense. If you guys are coming in, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys hit that like button. We are live about 5 hours earlier today, so we got we're a lot of people are probably going to watch the replay of this. We're not probably going to have over 100 people like we normally do. So make sure you guys hit the like button so it can get pushed into the algorithm. If you're coming in, we have Nathaniel from Freight Validate here. The CEO of the company is in the chat as well, answering a lot of you guys' question. I appreciate Dale for jumping in there as well. So come on in, hit that like button. We do have a poll up. Have you ever been a victim of double brokering? So far, 24% has said yes, 53% no, 24% are not sure. If you have questions, go ahead and start putting those questions in now, and I'll start plucking those questions out before we get into the Q&A session. We got about another hour-ish, a little less than an hour here. So go ahead and start putting those questions in, and I'll start incorporating them in. Kirk, go ahead. It's on you.
So DAT is one of the biggest platform that we carriers use.
Yep.
And around maybe October, November of last year, I stopped. I don't completely stop use it, but I stopped really. That's not where I get my loads, because I focus more on direct brokers that have their direct customers, instead of
Yep.
just putting on a platform and get double brokers and getting the phone hanged up, and just that disconnect is, to me, is just more over on the DAT side. However, they get a lot of pushback because people were asking how can a big platform like that will allow a bunch of double brokers to take place and not held these guys accountable. With your system that you're coming in with, is there going to be some type of violation or some type of reporting to the FMCSA if someone is to be caught, you know, doing double brokering? Or are you guys just going to cut them off and then they can just go on a different platform to do it?
So our goal, like I said before, our goal is that these guys don't ever even get to be validated if they're
Hmm.
double brokers or if they're the guys that are going to commit fraud. Our goal
Hmm.
and what our technology is designed to do is to catch them before they even start.
Right.
So at the very, very beginning stages, we look at things from day one. Our technology looks at things from day one when somebody's even going to get registered and to get their MC and their authority all ready to go, and the paperwork with FMCSA and getting all of their information all squared away to even start a company. We go back and check
Hmm.
from that day till now, right? And so
Hmm.
as there's issues arise and as things happen, what we think is that if I mean, let's put it this way: if a fraud, if a bad actor, so to say, goes and starts up an MC tomorrow, he's still gonna be a criminal 6 months from now. The time doesn't really matter, so to say, but there's
Hmm.
usually some major identifiers at the very beginning that would cause us to say this company is not validated, right?
Right.
But again, the good guys, the cream rises to the top in everything, right? Whether it's this or anything else. What we know what's going to happen is with utilizing the facial recognition piece, utilizing the company information from the Secretary of State and several other places, and then utilizing the kind of the background, if you will, from the person or from the company. We believe that process that we have and a couple other pieces is going to just simply weed out the bad guys. And I'm not saying that
Hmm.
somebody who gets validated today can't do bad business a year from now, but that's why we have all the checks and balances on a daily basis in place that would remove that person if they do start to do criminal activity down the road, right? So I guess I don't know if that answers your question, but we've absolutely been aware of hearing from other carriers and brokers that you mentioned DAT. We've heard from several other folks, several dozen other
Hmm.
folks recently that man, there's just so much stuff going on there. There's so much gray area. There's so much there's really just so much fraud going on. It's really tough to be confident and to have any trust in anything that's going on in that space. And so we believe there'll be a lot of folks, even from DAT, that'll want to come over and get freight validated, and that just simply won't do business with anyone who's not validated.
Yeah. So I currently use, and this is just one of my broker. I got multiple brokers that I use, and their system. I mean, they have their own customers, so you got to get verified. You got to get set up and verified through their system. And what by talking to brokers, what I find out is a lot of carriers. Um, first they need you to have at least 180 days. So a lot of guys are not qualified. The ones who do qualify, they never get to meet because then you have to go into a pool where you have this score system. So they never make it through the score system. And the point what I'm trying to make is a lot of these uh, uh, companies, especially the ones that I use, they're using all different type of method to weed out a lot of the double brokers. They put it on the Raycon that if you do it, they're not going to pay you for the freight. Just a whole
Yeah,
bunch of different things that they're using now to cut out, guys not even applying to from the get go. So I think what you guys are coming with is something good that's going to help the market. I hope it improve the market. I hope it, increase the revenue of carriers and people that are out here that's doing the work rather than some guy just sitting down and trying to take advantage of everybody. You get what I'm
yeah.
saying? So I just can't wait to see, you guys launch it and then take a look to see what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And Kirk, it's funny that you mentioned that. A lot of these brokers, a lot of these, a lot of these guys have different programs in place. They have different criteria you got to go through, different things that would
Uh-huh.
make you kind of weed out the good guys from the bad. Um, but over the last 4 years, it's risen by about 400%. So is the technology and is the
Right,
tools
right.
that a lot of these guys are using, is it really effective and working? I mean, statistically, it says no. But to your point, you mentioned it a minute ago. A lot of most folks, most brokers at least, won't book a load with a carrier who has not been in business for at least 180 days. Right? That's pretty common. I've heard
Right.
3 months. A lot of folks are 6 months now. Well, here's kind of an issue I have with that, and Dale and I have had several conversations about this as well. I kind of mentioned it kind of jokingly a second ago, but a criminal is going to be a criminal today or in 6 months in most cases. So it doesn't matter if you wait 6 months; they're still gonna be a criminal. And I'll give you the easiest example that we can probably give here in the industry today is what about all those really good drivers who used to drive for Yellow?
Mhm.
What about the guys who drove and they were truck drivers for 10, 20, 30 years? But because the massive corporation, the big company, YRC, they shut their doors, a lot of these guys are looking for work, right? A lot of these guys are going to go be company drivers somewhere else. But quite a few of them are also going to want to say, you know what, I want to do this for myself now. I want to go get my own MC. I want to go get my own truck. I want to go. I want to go haul loads for myself. Been doing it for 25 years. Why not? I have all the experience. Okay. Well, if that guy, he's got all the experience in the world. If that guy checks all the boxes and is registered legally and does the right things and is set up as and incorporated legally and has all the right paperwork and he's valid, he should get validated. Just because a broker won't book a load with them for 6 months, that's their business decision to make. But that guy should not be penalized because he just started up a brand new business, right? And so even the brand new person who's only been in business a few days, who just got their authority and their MC and everything, all and maybe it's only been a week or two. If they check all the boxes, they're going to be able to be validated as well, so that they can take that green check mark and go to the brokers or go to shippers directly and say, I'm validated. You can trust doing business with me. Which what we think is going to happen with that is not only is that going to be good for the industry because these good guys, the good drivers, are not going to have to wait as long for good loads. They're not going to have to wait 6 months in most cases for good loads because the weight of what that green check mark is going to start to mean in the industry. But what we also believe is going to happen over a little bit of time is the spot market rates are going to start to increase. Why? Because there's not nearly as many bad guys trying to take the loads. It's the good guys, and the good guys are gonna want obviously a little bit more on the spot market stuff as well. So holistically, we think this is going to be a really really good thing in a lot of different areas for the industry.
You know, I wasn't going to ask you this, but since you spoke on it as far as the spot market rates, what's your forecast on the spot market for when you think that rates are going to increase?
Man, Mark, that's hard to say. I'm not an economist when it comes to the spot market rate, but I'll just tell you this from my almost 15 years of experience of doing this and mostly on the brokerage side, my guess, and I'll just leave it at that, we'll say it's an educated guess, is that the spot market can't get much lower because it's horrible right now.
Mhm.
So hopefully it gradually climbs up and up and up. There's probably a lot of variables to that. There's a lot of reasons why it will. I think it will, but freight validate should be one of the reasons why it'll increase over time.
I want to ask you one more question. I'm going to put you on the spot. So, my claim to fame on YouTube was peak season. I told guys last year, months and months ahead of time, I said, you guys ain't going to see a peak season this year. And I gave
Right.
them all the variables on why they weren't going to see it. But,
Yeah,
they listened to these fake gurus and these influencers that came into the space during the pandemic that
yeah.
don't have the experience that I have. So, truckers going to see a peak season this year?
Um, I would love to say yes. I think if at all, it's going to be very, very minimal. So I would say maybe. Everyone's hopeful, but I would say not likely to be very significant is the answer. And Mark, to your point, man, I can appreciate being on this show with you because you got the experience. You know what you're talking
Appreciate you.
about because you've actually lived it for a long time, well over a decade. I think is what you mentioned to me, and it's just cool because you've been boots on the ground. You know what I mean? Like you've lived it, you've done it, you physically have been on the trucking side. You've done what you're talking about, which I can appreciate big time. And Dale and I, that's actually one thing that we kind of hang our hat on a little bit too. Is we've done it. We know what we're talking about because we've experienced it for well over a decade. In my case, well over 30 years in Dale's case. So
I
um,
appreciate that.
good stuff, man.
I appreciate
Well,
appreciate
I'll
that.
tell you what, man. I'll kind of. I don't want to shift gears, but I kind of want to shift gears, man. Let's talk about if you're cool with it. Let's talk about some like some expedited stuff. I know you were kind of telling me a lot of your connections, a lot of the folks that you guys work with and talk with and do business with is expedited box trucks, sprinter vans, even some small hot shot outfits, stuff like that.
Well, a lot of the guys that follow my channel are box truck guys. So my whole thing, moving company, final mile, box truck. So I speak to people that do cargo vans, not expedited. Axel, which is the guy who kind of connected us all together. That's his expertise. Kirk is obviously, you can see he's in the semi, right? But he also he started from humble beginnings like I did. I started with a pickup truck off of
Yep.
Craigslist in
Yep.
2010. And then I went from hustling on Craigslist to a moving company and a final mile trucking company and scaled it from a pickup truck to 15 trucks. Kirk started in 2011 with the cargo van. And as you can see, he's scaled from a cargo van to a fleet of box trucks, and he divested like I did during the pandemic. We took advantage of the market, and not knowing where things were going after the pandemic. No sense of holding on to all those trucks when you can sell them for 3 or 4 times the amount that you paid for them over 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think we timed the market pretty good because it would still be difficult to find people to work. And then Kirk has ultimately divested from the box trucks, went and got a semi. As you can see, he's out in the semi truck now. So we really don't deal with expedited, so to speak. We really deal with more OTR and
Okay.
final mile from the curbside, big and bulky side,
Yeah.
small parcel final mile.
Well, the reason I mentioned that, man, and I know we've talked a time or two about it now, is
Mhm.
the guys who are running trucks that are under that 10,000 pound mark.
Mhm.
Um, they don't get inspected like a lot of like all the other outfits do. They whether it be the sprinter vans or the smaller box trucks or whatever else,
Mhm.
they don't have the same regulations, so to say. But specifically the inspection piece, it's not the same as the 53-foot dry van guys. Kirk, right?
Mhm.
Is that accurate?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that is over the last couple years, um, the whole double brokering topic and the fraud really, honestly, it really started several years ago, handful of years ago. But a lot of it was in that over the road 53-foot, outfit, the larger trucks. But over this last year to year and a half, it's really kind of equaled out now, where there's as much issues and double brokering and fraud going on the smaller trucks, the expedited stuff, the sprinter vans, the smaller trucks, box trucks as well. And the problem with that is the technology companies that are out there currently that are trying to do anything in this space, which um, which again, that's kind of neither here nor there, is they're missing a huge piece of the industry. Tens of thousands of drivers across the country that drive the smaller trucks or the box trucks or sprinter vans. The technology that's out there in the industry today doesn't even account for them. It almost doesn't even, it doesn't help those guys out because a lot of their technology is just based on inspections. They put so much weight on inspections, and they kind of, they almost are biased to if a company has the accurate or predicted amount of inspections that they think they should have. And if a company does not, like a Sprinter van, like a box truck, like some of these smaller outfits as far as trucks, then they automatically discard them and say they're not a good company because they don't have the correct amount of inspections. And so what
Right.
we've done is we don't lean super heavy on the topic of inspections at all because again that's a subjective piece of data. Like you can't tell me if a company has one inspection or if they have 100 inspections that means that they're a good company or not. Those don't correlate. That's subjective. So our Freight Validate platform is 100% based on facts, right? I don't care if you're a Sprinter van. I don't care if you're a 24-foot box truck. It doesn't really matter what it is. You still have to go through the same requirements to get to get an MC and to get to get legal. That's where we come in and say, does that guy check all the boxes? Is he legal? Is he doing business legally? Is he compliant? Not does he have one or two inspections or whatever else that looks like, right? So what we think Freight Validate's going to do for the smaller outfits is actually help them out tremendously. Because if you take a 24-foot box truck, 26-foot box truck, whatever it may be, and that guy is running legal, he's compliant, he checks all the boxes, he gets his green check mark. Now he can start to take that and go utilize that to earn more business, to maybe even get shippers direct if he's only taking brokered freight right now. Like there's a lot of opportunity that guy might be able to have because nobody, in all reality, like nobody knows if that guy is fully compliant or not. He's got one truck and trailer, I mean, in most cases, nobody's really going to know or not until they get double brokered. And
Mhm.
so whenever they get that green check mark and become fully validated, we think it's going to start to help these guys out a lot too.
You mentioned AI earlier when we were talking about the facial recognition, but you really didn't dive into it. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys are leveraging AI with your technology, or is it too early?
A little early, and to be quite frank, I'm not really the tech guy of the group. I'll be totally honest. There's a lot of stuff tech wise that I do understand. Several
Mhm.
pieces I don't understand. But the main thing I think that's gonna I don't want to say the main thing because, like I said, there's several pieces that we're doing differently.
Mhm.
But the main thing I think first and foremost that people need to really that people are going to pay attention to that's going to help
Mhm.
is that facial recognition piece.
Okay.
And again, that doesn't have anything necessarily to do with AI, but I think Dale actually even put it here in the chat. It's kind of funny. He and I have said this a million times to each other. You know, a company can be a bad company, so to say. They can have 20 different MC numbers, which we've
Mhm.
seen,
Mhm.
but they've only got one face. They've only got
Mm.
one identification, and so when it starts there, then all the other stuff, once we validate, kind of falls in place. So yeah, man, there's a lot of technology that I'm really excited to roll out, and you guys will see it once we launch here on October the 9th. But yeah, if there's any tech questions, I'll probably defer that to the tech guys of our group.
Okay. So I pretty much asked you all of the questions that I asked. Kirk's out on the road, so he probably lost the
Yeah,
signal. He'll probably be back soon. So I want to open up um the chat. If anyone in the chat has any questions, now is um the time. Oh, here's Kirk. I just want to make sure he lost you there for a minute. Kirk,
Yeah, sorry about
yeah,
that. My
go ahead.
phone actually running hot.
No, it's all good. You got any more questions? You got any more questions for Nathaniel before we get into this Q&A?
No, not really. I mean, I think that we need to find, something like what you guys are doing to kind of like weed out the bad guys, so that way, because you said early on, if everybody is trusting each other, and I can pick up a load and run it with confidence, and they can knowing that they're getting a load delivered by a trusted person, then that's more work for me. You understand?
yeah,
And that's a higher rate. So I think, that's something good that's coming to the market, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, man. What we think is that it's going to save both carriers and brokers a lot of time, a lot of headache, probably a lot of stress. And, I
Mm-hmm.
guess last thing I'll say, Mark, and then I'll kind of flip it back to you, man,
Mm-hmm.
is, we're kind of talking about like having trust and having confidence and, being able to know for sure that you're doing business with a fully validated company. We haven't even got into, and we don't need to necessarily, but man, we haven't even got into like the financial repercussions of double brokering. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that kind of goes without saying,
Hmm.
but the data that we have and the research that we've had over the last however long, because and I didn't even mention this, but we have over 400 companies that we've been beta testing with over the last 4.5, 5 months now. And what we've heard from a lot of these folks is one double brokering situation, and this is both from carriers and brokers alike here. So this isn't just one way or the other. But if there is one double brokering situation, it can cost that carrier or broker thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, even if the load isn't that much. Let's just say an example I'll give you is an average truckload. Let's just say it's $2,200. Okay. I don't know if that's too high, too low for this audience, but a lot of the folks that we've been talking to, more regional folks, but a lot of the long haul guys as well. Let's just say $2,200 as an average load. Okay, well, if you get double brokered or if there's an issue with that, well, more than likely, from what we've been hearing, is it's over 90% of the time you can just kiss that money goodbye. Like you're not going to see that the payment from that load. 90% of the time, you're not going to see that. So there's $2,200 out of your pocket right now. Okay, and then what about all of the headache that goes involved with trying to deal with insurance companies back and forth and potentially filing a claim back and forth, trying to deal with a million different email threads you're trying to go back through and navigate, and who said this and who did this and who sent me the load originally and all these different things. So what we're talking about here is not just the cost of the load, which that alone could put somebody in a hard spot. That alone could make payroll for somebody or not. But then you have all of the hours that it takes, and we've heard anywhere between 5 to 10 hours that it takes, and consumption of the effort that it would take to try to rectify the situation. And over 90% of the time, the situation doesn't ever get rectified, and that carrier or broker that has dealt with the double brokering piece ultimately just has to wash their hands and say, all right, I got screwed. I'm just going to move on and hopefully it doesn't happen again. Okay, well that's several $1,000s out of your pocket and a lot of time and headache involved. When in all reality, we just believe that Freight Validate's going to stop everything at the root and not let it get to that point in the first place.
Okay. Let's get into some Q&A. Q&A. CEO of the company is in the chat. He's been answering a lot of questions, so I'm gonna kind
Yep.
of pick up some of the ones he didn't answer. We got one here. It says, I've been brokering freight for 15 years. And I'm passionate about putting bad carriers out of business. Are you guys looking to fill any positions at your company?
It's a great question, man. And I've actually had a couple other guys reach out to me over the last day or two as well. I mean, at the moment, here's what I'll say. I'm always open to a conversation. What we want is to help the industry. We want to unite the industry. And we think what we're bringing to the table and launching here in a couple weeks is absolutely going to be a game changer for both carriers and brokers. And so I'm always open to the opportunity, man. There's a lot of really good guys in this industry, and there's a lot of different ways that we can potentially work together, and whether it's from a partnership standpoint or just being able to work together to a certain extent, it's always worth at least a conversation.
Okay. Uh, I think this is a question. So aside from facial recognition, so can AI be used to scrape info quickly? I don't think AI is used to pull info. That's
It,
more to help with automation and things of that nature, right?
yeah. So from my experience, that doesn't do that. But again, I'm not the tech guy of the group. But no, we have several different areas that we scrape info from. But yeah, our technology takes care of all the data gathering that we want.
Right. Yeah. So CDA CEO AI is more for like automation. Um, Here's one. So if I take off my virtual address and use a regular address, will I be validated even though I started with the virtual address?
So if all of the other boxes check out, then absolutely. So the reason I say this is because honestly, whether you're a carrier or a broker, there are a lot of people that use like a PO box as you know when they're filling out their information, they use like a PO box.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but at the same time, it's not legal to do that. Like you have to have a primary place of business. And so what we would do in that example, if you go ahead and change that to a primary place of business, and we get notification that now it is a primary place of business, it's all filed correctly, everything checks out, and you're legal, then absolutely you'd be validated. You could be validated. If folks don't know how to do that for whatever reason, we're going to have kind of a tutorial, kind of a little clip, so to say, of, hey, check this video link out. Here's a little clip of how to go about getting yourself from maybe a PO box or a Staples location or whatever to getting yourself a primary place of business, because that is probably one of the most common issues that we've seen is doing business out of a PO box. Might be kind of a smaller thing, but at the end of the day, it's doesn't make you a bad carrier, doesn't make you a bad broker if you do business out of, say, a PO box. But what we've seen is the majority of fraudsters, bad actors, and double brokers do business out of a PO box. So you just don't even want to put yourself in that same category. It's not legal to do anyway, but you just don't want to put yourself in that same category when it's not needed, you know?
Okay. Here's a question I meant to ask, but I forgot to ask it earlier. I may have missed it, but how much is the registration fee, and is it subscription based?
Great question. It always comes down to dollars and cents anyway. So I appreciate the question. So we wanted to be super, super mindful of both the carrier and the broker in terms of price, right? So we didn't want to get into the game of just trying to make this a massive cost and just another crazy high monthly expense. Like, listen, been in the industry a long time. Mark, you've been in the industry a long time. I shared pricing with you the other day. You agreed that it's very reasonable and extremely affordable. But speaking to carriers specifically here, we know that you guys have a lot of overhead. We understand that you guys have a lot of other out-of-pocket expenses, operational costs on the month-to-month. And so what we wanted to do is just make it as affordable to the single truck guy as it would be to the guy who owns 150 trucks. You know what I mean? So to answer your question directly, it'll be $29 to set up as kind of a setup registration fee. It'll be $29. And then on a month-to-month basis, it'll be $29 and then $5 per truck that you have after that. So for an outfit that only has one truck, it's $29 to get registered, and then it's just going to be $29 a month. That's all it is.
Okay. And then $5 each additional truck.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay. If you have more than one truck, that's correct.
Okay. Guys, if you got questions, now's the time. Kirk, you want to jump in there? You got anything to say?
No, I mean, pretty much, it's a verification system that, a lot of people need to be verified. I mean, I, I know all the signs that you're talking about. I seen the rate cons. I know what the conversation is like on the phone.
Yep.
So I'm out here. I've seen it all. I think what a lot of people are not paying attention to is, like you said early on, a lot of people get duped by the money that these, double brokers guys put out. If you
Yep.
understand your cost per mile, if you know your lane, if you understand how much a rate should be running, given the size and the weight, whether it's a team, whether it needs to be there at a certain time, and it's just a partial or dedicated, the rate matters. I think a lot of people don't really take the time to understand that. And so by the
Yeah.
time they book a load and run it, like you said, it's too late because,
Too late.
it's already the damage already been done. You mentioned something which me and Mark was talking about last week, and I was explaining to Mark about the double broker, and it's funny you brought it up again, which was the insurance, right, Mark? Remember I was talking about the insurance, if there was something damaged, and if this guy give this guy, and there's a claim, it can get real messy. You get what I'm
Yep.
saying? And now you come back just to kind of say the same thing that I was trying to explain to people. Like, it's not just getting ripped off by brokers on a $2,000 load, getting paid $1,200. It's worse than that. You get
Yep.
what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
if you show up with a double broker freight and two of your pilot tipped over, and it's a statue that's going to somewhere that need to put up their statue, and it's a seven, 9,000, $12,000 statue, you can have a big issue with your insurance company.
100%,
You know
man.
what I mean?
I mean,
And
it's
so
way, yeah, it's way bigger and it's way deeper than just the cost
uh-huh,
of the load. There's way
right,
more time involved. There's way more headache and stress involved. Everyone's pointing fingers at the next guy. You know, it's his load, it's my load, it's your, back and
hmm
forth, back and forth. And it is absolutely much, much more costly than just the original dollar amount that's on whatever rate con it may be. You're exactly right.
right, right, yeah. All right, well, I just wanted to say that. Now, I always pull the guy's leg. My guys and Mark, I always tease them. So I'm going to tease them while they're here, man. When these double brokers rip these guys off, they go to Miami and have a good time with their girls, right?
Yeah, yeah, they do. I don't
You
know. I
can
didn't know if
say
that was a
that.
question or just a statement, but yeah, they do.
Because I always tell them, like, that's what they do with the money, go rent a Lamborghini, go have a good time, leave you on a truck stop, and next thing you stuck at love for 2, 3 days while they're having fun by ripping you off the whole week. So I just can't wait for you to come in with something that can, I know we ain't gonna get rid of it all the way, but at least reduce that. You get what I'm saying? Cut the
Yeah,
Miami
man.
trip down. You know what I mean?
Hey, listen, man. We absolutely expect this platform to dramatically reduce, if not eliminate, the issues. There's always
Right,
going to be
right,
bad players out there. We understand that, but
right.
we believe with our platform that truly there's not going to be a way that these guys can even get through if we stop it before they can ever really start, right? So yeah, man,
hmm
they won't be taking as many trips down to Miami whenever they can't afford it because we're going to stop those issues of double brokering. So hey, listen, real quick, I
Right.
saw one real quick comment or question that came up. I wanted just to address. I don't know who it was there. So somebody had mentioned something. I think it just passed on my screen. Something about like a cargo van that does have an MC number. Can they get freight validated? The answer is absolutely, and they should. And again, it's because the good guys should have no issues with getting validated. It's the bad guys who are going to not want to go through the process because they know they're going to get screened out and they're not going to make it through the process to get validated anyway. We've always kind of taken the approach and through a lot of these conversations with both carriers and brokers is you should want to get validated
hmm
and there's a lot of reasons why, but showing people like we're in kind of one of those industries where you kind of have to like prove your worth. You kind of have to show people that you're one of the good guys. You can't just say you're one of the good guys because everybody does, including the bad guys, right? So you kind of have to prove and show the people that you're doing good business. And obviously you do that through a lot of ways, like through your actions, through doing good business. Just on each load. Treating people with respect. All these things. But that stuff's really valuable and great. But to be able to hold up a green check mark and say, "Hey, I'm freight validated," that's going to start to hold a lot of weight. I know I've said that a few times, but I'll say it again. That's going to start to hold a lot of weight in this industry. So,
Right.
Here's a question. Outside of your company, I guess it means what companies are you pitching this to as well? Sounds like it will help a lot of people out. So are you guys working
yeah.
with like big load boards companies maybe? Because I know Amazon just introduced or implemented the facial recognition. Are you guys in talks with some of the load boards and so on and so
Yeah.
forth?
Yeah. Good question, man. So, carriers and brokers, this is like this is like a no-brainer. Carriers and brokers should absolutely be all after this, and we expect them to be. We've already gotten such good feedback. Carriers and brokers are hungry for what we're about to launch. The appetite for good quality, neutral, unbiased platform is it's a hunger right now. It's a need. But to your question, we actually have had a lot of really good conversations with some insurance companies. We've had a lot of conversations with a bunch of different factoring companies. Quite a few of the load boards we've been in conversation with, and a lot of them have reached out to us. Dale, I saw I see your comment right now. So we've had a lot of these folks reach out to us saying, we need some protection. Like we need some help. We need what you guys have at Freight Validate to really help protect us, but ultimately help protect our customers. And so, yeah, and carriers and brokers, absolutely. But man, we've had a ton of interest and a lot of really good conversations that's developing into some what we think is going to be some really productive partnerships with a few other main pieces of the industry too. Like I said, insurance, factoring, a couple of the load boards, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Well, Axel had a question, but it looks like Dale got to it already. His question was, will Freight Validate weed out non-logo units? But it looks like Dale got the answer for that already. I think that's all the questions that have popped up, and I know we're getting close to that
Yeah.
time. So, I guess we can go ahead, Kirk, unless you got anything you want to end with. I want to just ask Nathaniel, what advice would you give businesses looking to improve their freight validation processes, and why should they consider Freight Validate as a solution?
Yeah, man. Well, like I said before, I answer that again, man. Really appreciate the time. Really appreciate the how you guys having me on your show. It's always cool to talk freight with other freight guys. It's just kind of a cool dynamic there. Guys that actually know the industry. But to your question, man, I think carriers and brokers alike, just the amount of issues that there's been in the past should absolutely make the good guys want to say, I'm going to go get myself freight validated. Like there'd be no reason why you would not want to, because it's only going to do good for the good guys. Like we're not in the business of shaming the bad guys. They're going to get shamed by themselves as far as not being around for very much longer. We want to point and spotlight the good guys and the good companies, the good carriers, the good brokers, because there's a lot of them out there that are just not getting the attention that they need. And we think Freight Validate is going to really help separate the good guys from the bad actors. But yeah, man, like I said before, as we kind of close out the call here, we launch on October the 9th. Registration and actually going through the process to get Freight Validated literally only takes 1 or 2 minutes. It's super quick. It's super fast. We've made it very simple on the front end, so that anybody, whether you're a one-man show or a big operation, that any company can go through the process to get validated within just a couple minutes. And if they go through and get validated, they got the green check mark, and we'll praise them for that. I mean, that's a big deal. That's saying, hey, we're one of the good guys in the company or in the industry. And so, anyway, like I said, man, it's been a blast. It's been cool to chat freight with you guys. Excited for what Freight Validate's going to do, because again, we think it's truly going to help unify the industry, both carriers and brokers. But we also think it's going to be a huge separator, which is needed in the industry from the good guys and the bad. And so we're excited to launch on October 9th.
One quick thing, validation sign up has been paused for the moment right now, right?
Yeah, so we decided to kind of turn that validation registration off just a couple days ago, and the reason is because we did beta testing for about the last 4.5 months, and so now that we have a hard date, a launch date on the calendar of October 9th, we just stopped the registration of Freight Validate 1.0, which was kind of the basic version. It didn't have all the facial recognition, and it didn't have all the other pieces that we're adding to Freight Validate 2.0 when we launch on the 9th. So we stopped registration for Freight Validate 1.0 a couple days ago, and then that'll resume and that'll turn back on, so to say, right on October 9th when we launch with Freight Validate 2.0. And people can, like I said, people can go in and get registered within a couple minutes. And we absolutely suggest that whether you're a carrier or a broker, to make that a priority.
All right, you guys heard it. We got Nathaniel from Freight Validate. The CEO is also in the chat. Dale Prax. He's been helping, answer a lot of the questions. So I appreciate you guys for coming on. Um, uh, man, I would love to have you back, maybe Q1 of next year, and we can kind of see how everything's going with 2.0.
Yeah.
1 second here. I'm getting. Hold on. Oops. Can you hear me? You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So maybe have you come back on sometime, maybe Q1, Q2 next year, to see how everything's going, and kind of touch bases again. I'd love to continue, building this relationship with you guys on the channel, and I appreciate you guys for coming out. Wealth of knowledge. I think a lot of people that are on the stream and that are going to watch the replay can learn a lot from what you've displayed and Dale has displayed in the chat today. A wealth of knowledge between you guys, and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely stay in touch, and maybe over the coming months we'll put together another show. Appreciate the time, guys. It was blast
Thank
chatting with
you.
you guys.
Thank you.
We'll definitely be in touch soon.
All right, man. Take
All
it
right.
easy,
Thank
guys.
you.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
See you guys next time. Later.